Right now, your heartbeat might just be echoing through time. Because inside your body, ancient DNA from a long-dead human species is still hard at work. Your immune system, your sleep pattern 7, your skin tone could all be running on prehistoric software written by beings who vanished 40,000 years ago. No, this isn't science fiction. It's you. Look in the mirror. If your roots aren't 100% from sub-Saharan Africa, then congratulations, you're part caveman. Specifically, you're carrying genes from two extinct hominin species, the rugged Neandroks and the shadowy Denovans. These weren't some forgotten ancestors from millions of years back. This was genetic mixing that went down just 47,000 years ago when our Homo sapiens ancestors spread through Eurasia and ran into, well, let's just say things got a bit steamy in the Stone Age. For a long time, scientists wrote off the Neandroks as dumb, club-wielding cave bros who got outsmarted by slick modern humans. But recent breakthroughs in ancient DNA research flipped that whole narrative on its head. Turns out, it wasn't just handshakes and fire sharing. Our ancestors didn't just bump into these people, they built families with them. And the kids? They passed on genes that still influence us today. And no, these aren't some leftover relics gathering dust in your DNA. They're active, important, and sometimes the reason you're not sneezing your face off every allergy season. They shape your immune system, your sleep cycles, your skin's sun tolerance even, whether you're a natural early bird or a proud midnight gremlin. But here's the big question. How on earth do scientists even know which parts of your DNA came from these long extinct humans? What exactly are these ancient genes doing inside you? And why did some Neandrok traits make us stronger, while others nearly wiped us out? In 2010, a discovery changed everything. A team of geneticists did the unthinkable. They sequenced DNA from 40,000-year-old Neandrok bones. What they found was like finding a ghost in your bloodstream. That DNA, still alive in modern humans. According to a 2024 study from UC Berkeley and the Max Planck Institute, these ancient love affairs left non-African humans with about 1 to 2% of their genome inherited from Neandroks. Now that might not sound like much until you realize that's around 60 million letters of prehistoric code still running in your body right now. To put it another way, you could share more DNA with a long-dead Neandrok than you do with your own cousin. Wild, right? But it gets even weirder. A Princeton geneticist named Dr. Jonah Aris recently revealed that this exchange wasn't one-sided. Neandroks actually carried genes from Homo sapiens. 2 to 10% of their DNA may have come from modern humans, including bits that shape brain development. This wasn't a one-night stand situation. It was genetic mingling on a grand scale, happening again and again over thousands of years. Genomic timelines now show that all this interbreeding took place during a 7,000-year window starting around 47,000 years ago. Dr. Priya Malhotra from UC Berkeley led a massive DNA analysis project that pinpointed this era. Imagine that. For 7,000 years longer than all recorded human history, Homo sapiens and Neandroks shared lands, swapped tools, and made babies. But when that chapter ended around 40,000 years ago, the Neandroks vanished. Their bones turned to dust, but their genes? They stuck around. Now here's where it really starts to get crazy, because scientists are uncovering what these ancient genes actually do in your body. And the most fascinating discovery? They may be the reason you survive deadly viruses today. In 2018, evolutionary biologist Dr. Damien Enard found something bizarre. Humans have inherited a lopsided number of Neandrok immune genes specifically tuned to fight RNA viruses like the ones behind colds, flus, and yes, coronaviruses. The theory? Neandroks were already battling these pathogens for generations, so when our ancestors came into contact with them, they also picked up viral street smarts encoded in DNA. By the time Homo sapiens met the Neandroks 47,000 years ago, it wasn't just a cultural exchange, it was a biological upgrade. And that prehistoric partnership may still be saving your life today. Roughly 47,000 years ago, our ancestors didn't just walk into Eurasia, They walked into a virological battlefield. But they came prepared, or rather, they got prepared fast. By mixing genes with the native hominins, they inherited a full immune system upgradian, ancient biological toolkits sharpened over hundreds of thousands of years. Some of those tools still protect us today. Others, not so helpful. Think of it like installing vintage antivirus software on a new laptop, occasionally useful, occasionally glitchy. See, while Homo sapiens had spent their entire evolutionary journey in the tropical climates of Africa, their genetic rivals the Neandroks had been duking it out with all kinds of Eurasian diseases for ages. So when interbreeding happened, it wasn't just cultural, it was strategic. It was like downloading a prehistoric anti-malware program that had already been debugged by centuries of exposure to local pathogens. According to studies from 2018, it's now clear many of the immune defenses we rely on today, especially against RNA viruses, are thanks to these Neandroks genes. But their influence didn't stop at your white blood cells. It's also written all over your face. That's right. The next time you catch a reflection in a window, just know you might be staring at the echoes of an ancient love story. Thanks to a massive analysis of over 100,000 participants in the UK Biobank, scientists discovered that Neandroks DNA impacts everything from your skin tone and hair color to your height, your mood, how easily you tan, and even your likelihood of being a smoker. Yes, prehistoric genes might be part of the reason you bum a cigarette at parties. But what really surprised researchers wasn't just the variety of traits, it was what that variety revealed. Turns out, Neandroks weren't the stereotypical pale ginger cavemen we imagined. Their population had a rainbow of appearances. Multiple versions of the same gens-called alleles contributed to both lighter and darker hair and skin. That's a game changer for how we visualize ancient humans. It also makes evolutionary sense. With different regions of Europe and Asia receiving wildly different sunlight, Neandroks had to adapt to their environments long before Homo sapiens arrived. And when that genetic mixing happened, our ancestors inherited their built-in survival cheats, especially adaptations for handling ultraviolet radiation and seasonal changes in light. One of the weirdest findings? How easily you tan. Seriously. Some Neandroks-derived genes influence whether you get a deep golden glow or burn like a marshmallow. One gene in particular impacts both the ability to tan and the likelihood of childhood sunburn. It's one of the reasons why people with European or Asian ancestry might react very differently to sunlight compared to those with purely African heritage. But perhaps the most dramatic proof that extinct human DNA still helps us today doesn't come from your skin, it comes from your lungs. And for that, we have to climb the roof of the world. The Tibetan Plateau, 4,000 meters up. The air is thin, oxygen is scarce. Most people? Dizzy, gasping, exhausted. But the locals? They handle it like it's just another Tuesday. How? Not Neandroks genes this time. These come from their elusive cousins, the Denisovans. A 2014 study published in Nature uncovered the genetic secret behind Tibetan high-altitude superpowers. Their ancestors interbred with the Denisovans, and the resulting gene variant called EPAS1 reprogrammed their biology to thrive where most humans wilt. This wasn't just another interesting genetic tidbit. It was the first confirmed case of extinct human DNA, giving modern people a functional, life-altering advantage. EPAS1 controls how the body reacts to low oxygen. According to geneticist Dr. Rasmus Nygaard, this mutation allows Tibetans and Sherpas to survive in air that has 40% less oxygen than the atmosphere at sea level. While the rest of us would be wheezing and begging for an oxygen tank, they're farming, walking, and even sprinting like it's nothing, 4,000 meters above sea level. When most people climb to extreme altitudes, their bodies scramble to compensate by pumping out extra red blood cells. It's a short-term fix, but there's a catch. The blood gets too thick. Stroke, heart failure, and blood clots become real risks. But the Highlanders of Tibet don't have this problem. Why? Because buried in their DNA is a genetic superpower handed down by a people we barely even knew existed. This secret comes from the Denovan, ancient cousin of humans who vanished tens of thousands of years ago. The Denovan version of the EPAS1 gene acts like a built-in oxygen regulator, preventing the body from going overboard with red blood cell production. The result? Tibetans can function at 4,000 meters up like they were born to do it, which, genetically, they kind of were. The most astonishing part? This particular gene found in modern Tibetans is almost an exact match to the Denovan variant, and completely different from the EPAS one found in everyone else. The odds of this happening without interbreeding? Basically zero. In other words, the only way this adaptation could exist in modern humans is if our ancestors had kids with Denovans. And yet, we barely know these people. All we found of them are a few fragments part of a jawbone here, a finger bone there discovered in a Siberian cave. No full skeletons, no tools, no fire pits, just scattered clues. But from these ghostly remains emerged one of the most extreme biological upgrades in human history. And that's not the only ancient inheritance still steering our daily lives. Ever wondered why some people bounce out of bed at 6 a.m., while others don't feel fully human until after dark? That might not just be lifestyle, it might be legacy. Your circadian rhythm, your internal body clock, could still be ticking to Neandrok time. Recent genetic research has revealed that whether you're a night owl or a morning lark may depend on genes you inherited from the Neandroks. Scientists studying modern non-African populations, especially those far from the equator, discovered a curious trend. The further you live from consistent daylight, the more likely you are to carry Neandrok variants that affect your sleep patterns. It's a perfect evolutionary fit. The Neandroks lived in high-latitude regions with extreme seasonal light swings, long, dark winters, and never-ending summer days. Over hundreds of thousands of years, their biology adapted. And when Homo sapiens moved in and the interbreeding began, those sleep-regulating genes came along for the ride. These ancient sleep genes aren't just about when you hit the pillow. They're tied to some pretty big medical issues. Modern studies show that disrupted circadian rhythms are linked to spikes and dips in blood glucose, insulin, and leptin, the hormone that tells you when you're full. In other words, bad sleep cycles are tied to diabetes, obesity, and metabolic disorders. So those inherited Neandrok genes? They're still tugging on the strings of your appetite, your energy levels, and maybe even your waistline. But now comes the mystery that stumped researchers for years. If these ancient genes were so handy, why don't we have more of them? That's where evolution plays hardball. Because while some Neandrok genes were clearly useful, many others weren't just unhelpful, they were dangerous, and nature didn't keep them around. Scientists call these missing regions Neandrok deserts, patches of our genome where all traces of ancient DNA vanished quickly after interbreeding. Why? Genetic incompatibility. When two species mix, some combinations work, and some create major problems. Lethal mutations, developmental failures, reproductive barriers. Natural selection acted like a ruthless bouncer, tossing out any Neandrok genes that messed with essential systems, especially those tied to brain development or reproduction. The result? A patchwork genome. Some regions of your DNA are packed with Neandrok contributions, especially those tied to things like skin tone, immune defense, and metabolism. Other regions? Completely scrubbed clean. This selective editing gave us the best of both worlds. A few prehistoric tricks to help with disease and climate, without the risky baggage that could have wiped us out before we even got started.